Hi, so this video is going to be a quick run through of the kidney, of the anatomy of the kidney, and then either in this video or a second video we can go into the filtration, reabsorption, and secretion in the nephron, the function of the kidney. But let's start with the anatomy. So the kidney is shaped like a kidney bean. That's why they named it the kidney, and it's got this little indention in there. This indention right here is called the hilum. And hilum means door. So this is like the door of where the tubes go in and out of the kidney. So what tubes are coming out of here? Well, there is the ureter tube, and there is the renal artery. And the renal artery is coming from straight from the descending aorta. So here is your descending aorta that is coming down from the heart and all the way down your torso, all the way down your thoracic cavity, and then through the diaphragm, and then into the abdominal cavity. So here's your aorta, and the renal artery comes straight from the aorta and into the kidney. Also, we have the renal vein, which comes out. It exits the kidney and goes straight to your inferior vena cava. So right next to the descending aorta is your inferior vena cava. We'll put IVC. And the renal vein comes straight out of the hilum of the kidney and goes to the inferior vena cava. Now the kidney itself, this outer, this we normally see the kidney in models and things as like a brown kidney bean color, a reddish brown color. Actually, it's kind of white to get technical if you were to see it like in a live person, but we'll just stay with the models and keep it a brownish purple color here. So this, like I guess you could call it the skin of the kidney, the outside of the kidney. This is called the fibrous capsule. And that's just, like I said, it's like the skin of the kidney. It's the tissue that uh, goes around on the outside of the kidney. Now, on top of that, on top of, what we consider to be the kidney, like in what you see in models and everything, on top of that, it is surrounded by a layer of fat because the kidney is not in the same area in the abdomen as the other organs, like the stomach and all of that. The stomach and the intestines and the pancreas, those are all within the peritoneal cavity, but the kidneys are actually behind the peritoneal cavity, so it doesn't have that much protection to it. So you're going to have this layer of fat all the way around the kidney, and this is called perinephric fat. I'll write that down here. Perinephric fat. Now peri just means surrounding. And nephric just means about the kidney. So perinephric would just mean surrounding the kidney. So perinephric fat is just a layer of fat that surrounds the kidney. And then around the perinephric fat, you're going to have another layer. Let's draw this. You're going to have another layer called the renal fascia. And the renal fascia is what anchors the kidney to the surrounding tissues. Because you don't want to have your kidneys just bouncing around inside of you. So this renal fascia, it anchors the kidney to keep it to stay still, and it connects it to the surrounding tissues and the surrounding organs, so it stays in place. Now let's slice this kidney in half and take a look at what it looks like on the inside and all of the structures that are going on inside in order to filter waste products out and dump them out into the ureter as urine. And then the urine flows down here, down to the bladder. So let's cut this kidney open and see what it looks like on the inside. So inside the kidney is divided into two major regions. So you can kind of draw a line around here, separating the middle of the kidney from the most superficial layer of the kidney. So this layer out here, the most superficial region, is the cortex. Just like the most superficial region of your brain is the cortex. And pretty much the outer layer of any organ is called a cortex. A cortex is just a general term for the outermost layer of inside of an organ. And then in the middle section here is called the medulla. So if you hear medulla, think middle. And this goes the same with other organs in your body. You know, you have the medulla oblongata in your brain, and that's in the midbrain, in the middle of the brain. So medulla, just think middle. And those are the two regions of the kidney inside. And once again, here is the hilum. The hilum is the indention that makes it shaped like a little kidney bean. And the hilum means door, and that's where the renal vein, renal artery, and the ureter comes out from. Now the big major important thing, structure inside of the kidney is in the medulla region. It starts right where the cortex ends, and these little pyramids go down in the medulla region. Sort of like if you slice open an orange and you see in the little orange slices, you see those little triangles. So these little triangles go all the way around. It's hard to draw triangles in a curvy shape, but these little triangles go all the way around here, and these are going to hold some very important structures to the kidney. And these triangles are called pyramids. There, so these triangles are called pyramids. And as you can see, they go up, right up until the top of the arch of the pyramids are right at that separation line between the cortex and the medulla. So the pyramids are in the medulla region of the kidney. Now, if you notice, in between the pyramids, there are spaces, and this cortical region, the cortex that's up here, the tissue from the cortex continues down in between these pyramids. And this cortical tissue in between the pyramids are called columns. So this is a column in between the pyramid. This is a column in between the pyramid. Column over here. Column over here. And that is continuous with the cortical tissue up here in the cortex. Now, if you take half of each of those columns on either side of the pyramids, if you take half of this column on one side of the pyramid and you draw a circle to the other half of this column on the other side of the pyramid and you include that pyramid in it, this entire area is called a lobe. So a lobe is the pyramid plus the columns on either side. On either side of the pyramid. That's a lobe. At the tips of these pyramids, a tube comes out, and this is where your urine is excreted into these short little tubes that come out the bottom of these pyramids. Now these short little tubes where the urine comes out after it's processed and made in the pyramids. And these are called the minor calyx. Minor because they're the little ones. Calyx. Or plural would be calyces. So these minor calyces come out of the bottoms of the pyramids. The urine is made in the pyramids, in what's called the nephron, which we'll get to in a little bit. But so the urine's all made in the pyramids. It gets dumped out into these minor calyces. And then a couple, 2 to 3 of these minor calyces band together into one larger area. And see, here's 2 and 3 down here. They come in and they band together. So here's where they come together and they merge. Into a larger area. And those, since they're larger, are called the major calyxes. So this is a major calyx, and this is a major calyx. And then those major calyxes bind together, and they come together in a larger tube, and they join together in a larger tube, and that is called the renal pelvis. And they form the ureter, and then they come out of the hilum, which is the door, and that's the urine is what we're talking about, the flow of urine, and then the urine goes down the ureter, down to the bladder, to bladder. So here's a picture of what I just drew of the kidney, and let's go over it real quick again to make sure we remember all of these. Now first we have this big tube that comes out of the hilum of the kidney, and of course the hilum is that indention, and that's the door. Hilum means door, so that's where everything's going to go in and out. So this tube that comes out of the hilum and it goes down to the bladder, this is called the ureter. And then these pink triangles, there's a, there's a triangle, there's a triangle. These pink triangles are all called pyramids. Here's a pyramid, here's a pyramid, and inside the pyramid, that's where the urine really gets made. And then the urine gets made in the pyramid, and then it empties out into these little tubes at the bottom of each pyramid. So these little tubes at the bottom of each pyramid are called the minor calyx, or minor calyces. So there's one that comes out of the bottom of each of the pyramids, and then they hook together. So let me get a different color for that. So then they come together and hook together into a larger space. Here's one space, this whole area. And here's another space. These two pyramids come together, or these two minor calyxes come together into this area. And then these two minor calyxes empty into one area right there. They all merge together. And those are called major calyxes. And then the major calyxes merge together. They merge together into one big space. So this entire purple area that I'm circling, that's where all the major calyxes come together and get ready to turn into the ureter. So the point where all the major calyxes come together to turn into the ureter is called the renal pelvis. Now on the most outermost layer of inside the kidney, you see this where I'm coloring yellow. This entire outermost layer inside this area, this entire area of the kidney is called the cortex. And this entire area that I'm outlining in red, where all the pyramids are, this entire middle of the kidney, the middle tissues in the kidney, this is all called the medulla. So remember, medulla, think middle, and that's where the pyramids are. The cortical tissue comes down from the cortex and goes in between each of the pyramids. You see that? And those are called columns. And if you take part of a column from either side of the pyramid and the pyramid, including a pyramid, and part of the column on the other side of the pyramid, that is called a lobe of the kidney. So the lobe is the pyramid plus half of the column on either side of the pyramid. Now, the structure we have not talked about yet, and it's the most important structure of the kidneys, because that's what really makes the urine, is called the nephron. Nephron. Because remember the prefix or the root nepher. Nepher is going to mean kidney. It's going to refer to a kidney. So the nephron is actually starts up in the cortical region. There are these little balls, these little spheres, and they are attached to this loop-de-loop kind of thing that loops around and comes down, loops down, and then loops back up again, and then empties into a collecting duct. The collecting duct goes all the way down to where the minor calyxes are, because the collecting duct is what collects the urine made in the nephron, and it empties it out into the minor calyx and then into the major calyx and then into the renal pelvis and then down the ureter into the bladder. So there are two types of nephrons. The one I just drew is the cortical nephron, and it's named the cortical nephron because, as I said before, up here, this entire area is the cortex. And as you can see, this nephron, even the loop itself, only dips down into the pyramid a little tiny bit. It mostly stays up in the cortex region of the kidney. So this is called the cortical nephron. Now there's another type of nephron, and they're both in they're both, many of them are both in each pyramid, but I'm going to draw this second type of nephron in a different pyramid just for the sake of space so it doesn't look too messy. That little sphere is still up there in the cortex, in the cortical region, and it's got a little loop-de-loop thing, but it loops down and it goes down deep into the medullary area, into the pyramid. And then it comes back up and empties into the collecting duct, another collecting duct. The collecting duct goes all the way down to the point of the pyramid, empties out into the minor calyx, that merges into the major calyx, which merges into the renal pelvis, and once again it goes down the ureter into the bladder. So the two types that we just went over, this is the cortical nephron, and this one, since it dips down into the medulla area, the medulla region, this is called the juxtamedullary nephron. And juxta just means that it's coming from the cortex into the medulla area. It's mixing two regions. So it goes from the cortex into the medulla. So that's juxtamedullary nephron. That's the one that dips really low into the pyramid, into the medullary region. And there's there's a reason for the kidney having two different types of nephrons, but we can get into that when we get into the physiology of how the kidney actually makes urine.